Welcome back to Speducation. I am your host, Brandon Reed, and as always, if this is your first time to the channel, special welcome to you. Well, it's a new week and we have a new lesson. So, what are we going to be learning about? Today's lesson, autism, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. They'll never pay taxes. They'll never hold a job. They'll never play baseball. They'll never write a poem. They'll never go out on a date. Many of them will never use a toilet unassisted. Seriously? That's what some people think about autistic people, that's their life, that's what's going to happen. I mean, if that's what they think, I really feel terrible. Not for autistic people, but for the people who actually believe that, because that is not, and I can 100% say this, that is not true. And if you do believe that, I am sorry, but you are completely misunderstanding what autism is. So I think in today's video, we need to just focus on understanding what autism is and then just cut through everything and get straight down to the facts. So let's start with the most obvious one. What is autism? So what is autism? Autism, or autism spectrum disorder, ASD, refers to a broad range of conditions characterized by challenges with social skills, repetitive behaviors, speech, and nonverbal communication. According to the Center for Disease Control, autism affects an estimated 1 in 31 children and 1 in 45 adults in the United States today. What causes autism? Well, there are many causes of autism. Research suggests that autism spectrum disorder develops from a combination of these: genetic influences and environmental influences, including social determinants. These factors appear to increase the risk of autism and shape the type of autism that a child will develop. Now, keep in mind, it's important to keep in mind that increased risk is not the same as a cause. So even though genetic influences and environmental influences, including social determinants, may help increase the risk, it doesn't necessarily mean that those are the cause. So, for example, some gene changes associated with autism can also be found in people who don't have the disorder. Similarly, not everyone exposed to an environmental risk factor for autism will develop the disorder. In fact, most will not. And for those individuals that say, well, notice how it says there's an increased risk. Vaccinations could potentially do that. Okay, I'll concede if that vaccinations could potentially add to autism or in the increased risk of autism, if you concede to the fact that vaccinations alone don't cause autism. Asperger's and autism. Doctors used to consider Asperger's and autism as separate conditions, but the 2013 edition of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, the DSM-5, which is basically considered the Bible of alternative behaviors and psychology, the standard book that mental health experts use, changed how the condition is classified. Today, Asperger's syndrome is technically no longer a diagnosis on its own. It's part of the broader category of autism spectrum disorder. This group of related disorders shares some symptoms. Even so, lots of people still use the term Asperger's. Now, let's get down to the facts. What can autistic people do? What can't autistic people do? Autism, the facts. 1, autistic people can't show empathy. Well, actually, they can. Autistic people can show empathy. Now, it is true that autistic people will oftentimes say what comes out of their mouths because that's what they're thinking. But as they grow and they start to develop social emotional skills, they can learn to show empathy. My son, for example, is autistic, and he's one of the most empathetic individuals that you will have ever met. So to say autistic people can't show empathy, that's just wrong. Autism can be cured. Again, this is wrong. Autism can't necessarily be cured because it's a genetic disorder that people are born with. And even though we may not necessarily know exactly what causes autism, in order to cure it, as they would say, you would need to change the genetic makeup of human beings. And not only that, but we aren't even nearly there yet. I mean, even though we're able to identify ways of cloning people, being able to cure autism is just not feasible. Autistic people can't make eye contact. Again, this isn't necessarily true. Autistic people can make eye contact. It may not necessarily be something that they like to do, but it is something that they can do. And I often do it with my son. Even though he's autistic, he has trouble making eye contact with people. But if I want to get a point across, I'm going to let him know, Russell Rue, you need to look at my eyes. Okay. And that way I know that he's listening to me. But for some autistic people, it's really hard for them to do. So each autistic person is different. Autistic children are naughty. No, autistic children are unique. They may have certain ways of doing things. They may have certain ways of expressing their emotions because that's how their mind works. And some of those ways may be distracting to other individuals. And so for a teacher, they may think that it's naughty behavior, but in reality, it's just their disability showing out through their personality. But these are things that can be helped through things such as social emotional learning, which has benefited a lot of autistic children. Autistic people can't make friends. Once again, this is wrong. They can. Even though they may have difficulty with social emotional connections with other people, and even though there may be some autistic individuals that have difficulty with apathy, they can make friends. They can make connections. My son, again, he is autistic and he can make connections and he has friends. So this is proof that this is wrong. All autistic people are geniuses. I really wish that were true, but unfortunately, it's not. Now, there are many individuals that are autistic that are very, very smart, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they are geniuses. Now, granted, there are some autistic people that are very, very, um, you know, need help. I mean, these are individuals that will most likely need additional support when they graduate from high school, if they graduate. And so they'll need living support. But those types of individuals are often very, very rare because autism itself is a wide spectrum. Autism only affects white people. Again, autism, it doesn't, it's colorblind, okay? It doesn't see color. So African Americans, Asians, okay, even Hispanics, they can all be affected by autism. It doesn't matter because autism is a genetic disorder. So it doesn't go by race. Only boys can be autistic. Again, this is not true. There are many examples of individuals, females being autistic. There are even shows on Netflix right now. Right now, even one called Dating on the Spectrum, I believe, and it shows autistic people, guys and girls that have it. Autistic people can't tell lies. My son tells lies frequently, and he knows that that's against the rules. But the thing is that with autistic people, they tell whatever comes to their mind. All right. So whenever they think of something, they just automatically say it. That's why a lot of people think that autistic people can't tell lies, but they can because as they grow and they develop, they're able to understand what is true and what is not true. And if they don't want to get in trouble, they might tell a lie. Now, it is true that there are certain autistic people that might not be able to tell lies, and that's understandable. But to say that all autistic people can't tell lies, that's a lie. And then autistic people are like jigsaw puzzles. To this, I would say yes, in a way, this is true because each autistic person is unique and trying to figure out what works for them is kind of like a jigsaw puzzle. So you may disagree and say, well, that's just wrong. That's mean. No, it means that each autistic person is unique. Okay, there are not necessarily, two of the same jigsaw puzzles. I mean, technically, yes, there are, but one autistic person is going to be different than another autistic person. So whenever we're talking about their like jigsaw puzzles, it means you have to figure out what works best for them, what their strengths and weaknesses are, and then move on from there. So when it comes to autism, it's not so black and white, is it? It's really very complicated. But again, autism is something that we're still trying to develop and understand. And even though there are those individuals that say we're going to find a cure for autism or we're going to find the root cause of it, that's great. I mean, I wish there was a way to figure out what causes it. But as for a cure, I really don't think we're going to find one. And that's okay because each of us is each of us is our own unique individual, okay? But for somebody to say that they'll never pay taxes, they'll never hold a job, they'll never play baseball, they'll never write a poem, they'll never go out on a date. If anybody ever says that, they really don't know what autism is, and they really need to go back to school. And for those that believe that what was said is true, that they'll never be able to contribute to society, why not ask these famous people? Anthony Hopkins. He was an Academy Award winner. Dr. Vernon Smith. He is a researcher who won a Nobel Prize. Dan Aykroyd. He was given an honorary doctorate in 1994. Not to mention, he's been in film, television, and he's even done music through such things as the Blues Brothers. Even Albert Einstein, although he was never actually determined to have autism, a lot of his traits and characteristics fit within the autism spectrum. And for anybody that's thinking, oh, well, okay, those are just a few examples. So what? One won the Nobel Prize. I mean, seriously, they're not going to be able to hold down jobs. I mean, come on. I mean, do you see somebody with autism working in the federal government? That's right. Elon Musk is autistic and he runs Doge, that efficiency thing that is, held under the Trump administration. So before you start claiming that autistic people can't do things or even working in Washington, here's a prime example. Okay, maybe he's not the greatest example. So if this video was a little bit longer, for that, I'm sorry, but this was a topic that I felt needed to be discussed. And hopefully, if you have anybody that believes that autistic people won't be able to contribute to society or do anything or live independently, by all means, show them this video. And don't take my word for it. Look up the resources that I've included in the description to this video and do your own research. Because let me tell you, autistic people, they will surprise you because they're capable of doing a whole lot more than you think. Now, if you liked what you saw, you're new to the channel, or you learned something new today, please click that like button. And if you want updates on future videos, feel free to click the subscribe button and ring the bell for updates on future videos. And as always, if you have questions or comments, or there's a particular topic in special ed that you want me to cover, by all means, drop a line in the comments section and I'd be happy to go over it. And as always, remember, this channel is not meant to be divisive. So if I offended anybody, I am sorry. But I wanted to make sure that I got the facts out there because autistic people can do a lot of great things. And I know this because of my son. So before anybody rushes to judgment, do your own research. Don't take my word for it. Find out for yourself. And until next time, class dismissed.